Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of one of our American Scouser TV pre-match shows. I am Gally. For any of you who don't know me already, I'm going to be hosting us this morning, bringing on a whole brand of different characters and figures, give their intake here, a little bit of input on today's lineup. Who knows? Maybe we'll get to a little Endo talk, and we'll try to figure out exactly how Liverpool will set up this afternoon. More importantly, what it will take for them to secure all 3 points and get this season off and firing. As always, please jump in, comments, likes, shares, bring new folks to the channel. If you aren't already, go ahead and jump into our Fantasy American Scouser Cup. There's a lot of banter. We'll talk about it on the pre and post match, and of course on our fantasy show each Thursday night. And you'll hear how you can do better than the so-called fantasy experts. So we are going to bring in our first guest of the morning now. Anyone who's been a listener to this podcast for years knows he is one of our resident Scousers. Back stateside, without further ado, Mr. David Cosgrove, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
That might be the best introduction I've ever had. I love that.
Yes,
might figure around to me in my personal life every time I go into a restaurant just to introduce me. Amazing. Yeah, man.
It's good. Always good to have a hype man, right? Whether he believes it or not, it's good to have one.
Yeah, man, I like that. Yeah, man, I'm good. You know, early doors, back up to these early starts, watching the Reds, which is always nice.
You are what, mountain time, right? So it's what, 7 a.m. just cracking?
6 a.m. fella. I'm in Nevada.
Oh, you're in Nevada, so you're all the way out west.
I'm all the way out west. These early starts kill me. Yeah.
I can't imagine what those 4:30 a.m. starts are like. Those ones really got to be painful. And then you have to watch us play the way we play at lunchtime kickoffs. So obviously the Reds take on AFC Bournemouth at home. I think we all remember last year's home affair. What a joyous day that was. And then we also remember last year's away affair. And it probably was the culmination of kind of the final nail in the coffin of that run in. We were close, but it was those types of points second half of the season. So before we take a look at the lineup, excited to see the boys back at Anfield today. Also really excited for the idea of that new stand. I know it's not fully completed yet, which is a shame, but it will be nice just to see it there and to know that we have started to step up the capacity of what is already the best stadium in the world.
Yes, mate. Yeah, man, excited to see the boys back there, to be honest. You know, I think we all first feared that when they were actually saying over the summer that they were going to do this stand, we were like, well, we don't want to play 4 or 5 games. The first game is away from home. So that was my first worry. You know, Liverpool have to get off to a good start. And I was very much, I do not want 5 away games back to back to get off to a good start kind of thing. So excited to be back. I don't think if we could handpick a better side, probably from Luton or Sheffield, to play a home first game. In terms of how Bournemouth play with their new manager and how expansive he is. With them having a new manager as well. We do not know what they're going to be. You know, I remember, this time last year, we played Fulham away in the first game, and everyone was going, that's 2 points dropped. And you're like, well, we have no idea if Fulham are going to be any good or not. And it turned out they were actually quite good. So, you know, it actually turned out to be an okay point in the end kind of thing. It's the same. I had the same feelings with Chelsea last week that we're playing 2 sides with 2 new managers. And they're just unknown quantities. We do not know if they're going to be any good or not. So I quite like to get those games early doors out the way before they actually get into their season and actually might start stringing some results together. So I'm super excited to play them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about the Chelsea match. You know, it is the pre-match for the Bournemouth show, but to just quickly touch on it, the idea of getting them at that time was perfect because you can see Pochettino's already put an imprint on that side. Yeah. Ben Chilwell looked like a rejuvenated player. Granted, it'll only happen for the 4 weeks that he's healthy, and then he'll blow out an ACL or rupture something and be out for 3 months because that's what Ben Chilwell does. So I think we got them early season. I think getting Bournemouth early time as well. Want to make sure that we review the lineup with you while you're on with us this morning. Exact same starting 11 as last week in Chelsea. Would you have freshened up anything today? Would you have maybe made a move? I thought maybe Jota going to the bench and maybe bringing Gakpo up top. But then I found out Curtis Jones wasn't available, and that kind of changed my thinking because I don't think I'm sitting Gakpo for Harvey Elliott yet.
Yeah, I was going to do the Elliott Gakpo sub, putting Gakpo further forward for Elliott, only because I thought Elliott was so impressive when he came on against Chelsea. I thought he was so
I
impressive.
agree.
So I felt like, and just with the manager in his press conference yesterday when he mentioned he wanted more control of the ball and he wanted us to keep the ball better. That we only had 35% possession and that wasn't good enough kind of thing. So I thought he might bring an extra midfielder in just to have a bit more control. To Liverpool, we should have 70% possession anyway, or close to that, against Bournemouth at home. But sometimes I feel like you want to get your starting 11 right to say, this is how I want to play. And that's basically, the one that we always go back to say that's the perfect performance, 70% keeping the ball better and stuff like that. So that's why I'm quite surprised he's went for this. I do think it also allows him to win the game early, if it comes to that. It allows him to win. It does allow us to get the extra striker on the pitch and go, you shouldn't have to worry too much about things coming back your way. Bournemouth will get on the ball. They will try and play. They will be, so that benefits Liverpool massively. Because we have all seen games in the last 5 years where people have come to Anfield and just sat there and just took the 0-0 and trying to get that point. But I don't think Bournemouth are going to do that. So maybe he's trying to win the game early, then try and get, we all want to see the Endo run out 20 minutes to go with 4-0 up. We would all love to see it. But also, I'm interested to see what he does with Doak, because he made the big call last week bringing him on. And it's like, now, are we counting this kid as a part of our front six, let's say? Is he a part of that now? Because doing him away at Chelsea, even for 15, 20 minutes, 1-1, by the way, when they put Mudryk on and stuff like that, was a big, big call. Which I thought to be honest, he's played more league minutes this season than I thought he would have ever played. And we're only one game in. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with him as well.
Yeah, it made my true false statement of true that he would make 7 league appearances a heck of a lot easier that I made 2 weeks earlier, because he already has one under his belt that I didn't think we'd see one until like November. And then I thought he'd get a few during AFCON, maybe an injury. I didn't think he would be a second half substitute for your talisman tied on the road with 20 minutes to go. But I also think that might be a little precursor to what Salah has to get a little bit more used to. He's still going to play 90 minutes a lot, but we're going to play a lot more football, a lot more extra time, as we're being shown. He's got AFCON, and maybe Klopp has just been so impressed with the young kid. And, Klopp does love himself a youngster, and he can get enamored with one. Remember Elliott starting at Leeds over Henderson, and people going, wait, last week Henderson wasn't available. I understand why the captain's not starting on match day 1. But week 2 on the road at Leeds, granted there was a big injury, but the kid, really did play well. So before we bring in Maka and say goodbye, what is your overall high level, quick, Kazi take on the Waturo movement, Endomania, as I like to refer to it? Whether it's, whether he's literally loved or hated, he's like a WWE wrestler at this point. What are your thoughts on Endo, and what's your prediction for the match?
I'm a big fan of it, man. I like the move. Now, I've seen a lot more of him and his stats, of course. When we signed him, I think everyone was the same, like, who the hell's this kid? Which is completely fine to feel like that. But after watching him and his stats and stuff like that, and how much he wins the ball back and stuff, I think Liverpool just need a competent number 6. We just need you to be competent. Like, I don't need, like, of course, we'd all love the Caicedo deal, and we'd all love him to be, even if Liverpool get a competent number 6, he'll probably still gain us 12 points a season, 15 points, just to be a 6 out of 10 every single week, 7 out of 10. I don't need you to be prime Fabinho against Barcelona. I just need you to be a competent player. And if this kid is this, then great. Klopp talked about he's a late bloomer. He's kind of, he said, and he loved mentioning James Milner that he came at 29 and Endo's 30 kind of thing, and Endo can play multiple positions, which also gives him the option as well, because I don't think anyone wants to see Joel Matip starting in the league in 2023 in this formation. So it does give him that leeway and gives him them options. I mentioned it before in the previous podcast a couple of days ago in one of the comments. It gives Liverpool breathing space to not get hung over the barrel by other clubs, to go, you've got no number 6, so here's our price. When it's actually, no, we have got number 6. We can actually take our time a bit more and actually study this a bit more. And if that is Gravenberch, or if that's, someone else, whatever that is, great. But it also gives Liverpool a bit of strength and bargaining power. Super excited for them, made up. I like stories where lads get the chance like this. a bit like the Lallana situation. I know Ricky Lambert was a bit different, but coming back to your own, your football club that you supported when you were a kid kind of thing. Now he's talking to water and, whatever's happened to Ricky Lambert's happened to Ricky Lambert. But, I like those kind of stories. So, but my prediction for the game, I go 5-0 Liverpool. I mean, people forget how good we are. I think it really frustrates me, sometimes when I'm talking to different Liverpool fans. We have really good players, I know we need players, but we still have really, really good ones. Like, I still think we have the best attack in the league. And we have the best goalkeeper in the league. There's an argument we have the best, at least in my opinion, one of the best centre-halves in the league still, even in Van Dijk. So I'm super excited for the game. I'm the midfield, which, for Sabosley was excellent last week. Super excited again. So, yeah, 5-0 Liverpool. Why not?
All right, Kazi, thanks for jumping on as always. Have a great match. We'll see you in Discord, I'm sure. And we'll be chatting soon. Thanks, bud.
Boys. Have a good one.
Mr. Maka, back in the seat. Back on a pre-post, back on the show. How are you doing, my friend? Been a long summer.
It's been a long summer. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to this. Although the phrase Jurgen Klopp does love him a younger player is probably something we probably need to put some context on.
Nah.
In this day and age.
Nah, I thought about it as soon as I said it, and then I was like, nah, if you go to that place in the gutter, well, we might as well bring in Maka. So, what are your takes on the lineup? I think you had mentioned in our chats that you weren't able to see a lot of the first match, and you've had a lot going on with work and family and folks traveling in. After kind of reviewing how the Chelsea match played out, would you have come back with the same exact lineup? Would you have freshened it up a little bit, knowing you haven't played a match in 7 days? Maybe switch things up a bit with how your second half substitutes did seem to change the match a little bit when it came to at least Elliott specifically?
I think maybe I would have put Nunez up for Jota. I mean, we either have to give him the chance to be the main man, or we have to say this isn't working. We'll start making moves to replace Nunez already. And just because Jota went down, I think, didn't he, in the Chelsea game? So with his record, any knock, it's like Thiago. Any knock, you kind of have to treat with kid gloves. Gakpo, yeah, I would love to see him further front, but I don't know who comes into the midfield. Had we got Endo a week before, then I would have jammed him in there, no problem. Because I think this is almost like a Lucas signing for Rafa. He's going to be in there and he's going to win the ball, and that's all his job is going to be. And every great team, almost every great team, has that player, like a Roy Keane or a Steve McMahon, somebody he's probably a better passer than we've read about or heard about. But that's not his job. His job is stick the foot in, get the ball back, give it to the lads who can play, and that it doesn't get more basic than that. And if he does that job, not only is he earning his money, but he's probably opening up the game for us in ways we hadn't thought of before, since the best days of Fabinho, perhaps. But other than that, I would have kept it pretty much the same.
Yeah, I understood it. Like I said on the pod on Monday, if there was a change, I could have seen Jota dropping to the bench, maybe Gakpo moving into the center of the park and bringing a midfielder on like a Jones. But then when you hear Jones picks up a knock in training and is going to miss the match, I don't know that I thought Elliott was good last week. I don't know that you have to shoehorn him in, and I think you might weaken. You're already kind of soft with Szoboszlai and then McAllister at the 6. You bring on Elliott and you hang out Robertson to dry a little bit. You're already kind of asking Trent to do a lot more defending. The last thing I want to do is give Bournemouth a chance to counter against us. Use David Brooks, use the new pacey winger they purchased. They're not going to see a lot of the ball, in my opinion. They didn't see a lot of the ball against West Ham. I don't see them doing it against us. And I think you have to be as stable as you can. And I think Gakpo offers that. Plus, we know he can press. And then it offers the interchange there. To Kazi's point earlier, I really do hope they get out and start, score early and get flying offensively. I don't expect 9-0, though it was me and you on the pre-match last year for the Bournemouth match, when I'm pretty sure we said that they were going to get absolutely smashed, and they were absolutely smashed. So it'll be interesting there to see how that goes. Talk to me a little bit here about the bench. Obviously, Endo is the big news. You have Nunez. nice to see Bashetic back. Brian Shelton chimed in, and please, as always, feel free to get your questions or your predictions. Share them in the chat. We'll bring them up on screen and talk about them, of course, as we do in each of our shows. It's great to see Bashetic on the bench, and it is really nice to see the kid on the bench. And, you know, there's a lot of reports that their big concern or their struggle with thumping up the extra money to sign Lavia before the Caicedo debacle was that they honestly see Bashetic and Lavia as the same profile player with similar upsides. And Bashetic is actually a year younger than Lavia and has proven on a microcosm that he can do it within this system and these players. Is that kind of fool's gold in a tough way to look at things because we saw a very small sample size? And two, what are your concerns with Bashetic coming off such a tough injury to get over as an abductor strain that shut him down for the rest of the season last year? Like, do you think we can formally consider him the backup number 6 on this team? Or do you think we still need to go out and buy ourselves another defensive midfield anchor?
Well, first of all, like just on the bench looks like a League Cup bench almost. There's the quality in there, and then there's the younger, less experienced players in there. It's a weird looking bench. But for Bashetic, I mean, he looked capable every time we saw him before the injury. He just looked like one for the future. So I hope that the background or the backroom team know the extent of his injury and were more prepared to wash their hands of Lavia and say, you know, we didn't get him, but we have something in reserve. We just want to make sure he's okay. Because you never know with injuries of that magnitude to these young players. I mean, we had this, if we had StreamYard and podcasting and YouTube back in the 1990s, we would have this conversation about Rob Jones. That injury on his ankle is not going. We don't need another right back. We've got Rob Jones for the future, but it never materialized. He just never got over the injury. So you kind of hope that they know a lot more than we do, and they're quite happy with his progress. But you just never know. So I could see why they went for Lavia, but maybe they saw Lavia and Bashetic as the future competing against each other for that spot, or a double 6 if we assume we keep Klopp for that long. So I'm not concerned about him. I hope he's okay, but I think it'll be more along the lines of today: is Endo ready to go on? Is the situation there for Endo to come on and not have to win the game for us or stem the tide or something like that? If it's a comfortable one, I think we'll see Endo before we'll see Bashetic. It could also just be a psychological thing. Just let him on the bench and say, you know, you're nearly there. Keep pushing on the recovery.
That's what I think. I think it's probably more of that, to be honest. And a big part of that is that I think that the bench is so weakened because once again, Thiago is on the trainer's table. And unfortunately for Jones, it does appear that, you know, though I think he plays hard and will play through an injury if he has it, he seems to pick up these knocks pretty regularly and have these, you know, like 1-2 match missing options. Because I think the bench looks a lot stronger if you go ahead and put, you know, so I think that's probably the most important piece. So
I think
go ahead. What do you got?
I think for the bench, like if we had it was a Jones and Thiago there instead of maybe Bashetic and Doak, it looks a lot stronger. It looks like a quality bench, and we've no fear coming on the field. It just, and I say that like as soon as I say it, just feels weird now not having Fabinho and Henderson and Milner on the bench to fix things.
I think that's what it really comes down to. The other one is I actually will disagree a little bit. I think Ben Doak's going to make the bench every week. Klopp didn't bring him on last week for nothing. That kid is part of the plan.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I think he's not. It's just in terms of his experience. Milner and Henderson.
Yeah, I think
Milner and Henderson thing. Like they could fix the game.
I think it'll end up being Matip that ends up being the veteran player that does not make a lot of match day squads, especially if Klopp genuinely believes that Endo also offers cover at center back, because you have Gomez to cover your right back cover if you need to sub off Trent. He's also a center back. Endo can slot back there as well if you have to reconfigure. I really believe once we have a fully fit Thiago and a fully fit Jones. Doak will make most benches because I do agree with you. I think he's fantastic. So I'll get you out of here on this, buddy. What do you got for a prediction today? And then, of course, give a quick plug because you'll be hosting the post-match show after the match ends, and let us know how that's going.
Well, I think we're still a bit soft in the middle, so I would say 4-1 to us. We're going to concede, I think. And I think Endo will come on, and then hopefully he comes on. But when he does, I think it's going to change the game in a way we didn't think of. It's going to free everybody else up, and we might get the 4 or like 3 of the 4 goals late on if that happens. That's my prediction. We'll find out if I'm right or wrong on the post match, which everybody should be on. We'll have the guests on like this one at a time, and we'll get everybody's opinions on whether it was absolutely deadly, as we say in Dublin, or absolute crap. We'll find out in 2 hours or thereabouts.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time this morning. I'm glad to have you back. If I'm not mistaken, you will be back Thursday night in the big chair.
I'm back Thursday. Yep. It is a big chair as well. It's a recliner. So, yes, I'll be back on Thursday night.
I did the best I could filling those seats, and I think from people can see from the size of the space taken up in the frame, I didn't exactly fill the chair, but I filled in the spot. So thank you for letting me fill in for you. I will be on Thursday night to check you out and comment. I won't be able to jump in, I don't think, during the post-match today, but I'll be listening from the car, and I will on my way back from watching the match. So with that, we'll get you out of here, and we'll get off to we'll bring our next guest in, the Polish Prince. Mr. Matusz, how are you doing this morning?
Great. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. What is your take on the non-rotation of the lineup? Did you expect any rotation to that lineup?
I didn't expect any rotation. I thought that if there would have been any rotation, it would have been Darwin coming in for Jota and kind of going into the center and having Diaz out to the left. But I don't know. Darwin is probably not going to get into the team until he really learns how to press. So until then, he might not get a lot of opportunities. It felt like, for me, though, this sort of game, especially with Bournemouth, I feel like they're going to sit back, right? So for me, I was hoping to see Gakpo play up top because I feel like he'd be much better at breaking down defenses, playing in that sort of Bobby role than where he is going to play from in the midfield today. And I get it that it's because of limited options all around, and it's sort of what we had to do. But I figured against a team like Bournemouth, you might take the chance of not needing Gakpo in the midfield, maybe having Harvey Elliott out there and doing like an Elliott, Maka, Sobos sort of deal, and have Cody play up top in that 9. But I mean, it is what it is. I feel like if this 11 can't still play well against a side like Bournemouth, then we're in a lot more trouble than we think we are.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm not worried about the lineup, and I thought for moments and for periods they played well against Chelsea, especially the first half when we were on the first 20 minutes where we're on the front foot. Obviously we have the mental lapse and then the breakdown. We concede the goal, and I did feel like from the moment we gave up the goal, we were really second best all match long. We were lucky to get a point. I said that on Monday night. I think I reset it on Thursday night. Probably said it with you during the fantasy show. So, what's your take on Bajcetic making the bench? Seems like a big topic for today. And then, of course, I can't let a person get out without giving their 2 cents on Endo and what it means for the side. So let's start with Bajcetic making the bench. Do you expect him to play like Maka? Do you think maybe it's more of an ode to the young lad rather than?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because the injury is coming from. We don't really know what to expect. And the last thing you'd want to do is kind of throw him out there in a situation where he's not specifically ready. But it's the age-old argument, and you've said it plenty of times, and other people have said it. If you're good enough to be on the bench and healthy enough to be on the bench, you should be healthy enough to play, right? And so at least I think that part of it for Bajcetic for me is really promising because he was someone that, he didn't play a perfect game every game last year when he was able to play, but he was exciting. He was someone that was younger, that had shades of Thiago, shades of Fabinho. Almost, we felt like he was being molded by these players into a hybrid of them all. And so it was exciting. And so the tough thing is hoping that he comes back from this injury the same way that he was before. As far as the Endo deal, I mean, I'm excited. I think even Kazi mentioned just having any sort of competent six back there is going to be acres better than what we have now. And based off all of the biased reading I've done from Japanese Liverpool fans or Stuttgart fans or Japanese Stuttgart fans who just can't say anything but good things about him, I have made myself so excited. I think this is going to be the best team in the history of the world. That's pretty much, they might as well, right? I mean,
I love the over the top positivity, because normally we get the opposite on these podcasts, especially when it's coming from myself and Bickler. It can easily go somewhere down to one of those negativity, trolling, little divisive conversations that we get into. I'm with you. He's a competent player. People quickly forget that he was, in some pundits' team of the tournament at the World Cup. He had a great World Cup, which elevated his status. There is something to be said about a late bloomer. And I made the joke earlier about, Klopp can get enamored with a young player, and we're kind of seeing it with Ben Doak. We've seen it with Harvey Elliott. And then that shiny new toy, the bloom, like comes off the rose every once in a while. If he hits the ground running and is just a professional, industrious worker, I could see Klopp absolutely falling for this player and utilizing him an awful lot in an awful lot of different ways. So it'll be exciting for me. I'm really hoping that we can get to a quick, run out to a quick lead. He can get on, maybe even for an extended run out. Like, it would be great if this thing was dusted at halftime and you gave him 45 minutes rather than just the last 15 to 20 that I probably expect. I think this is like the second substitution window at about 70 minutes. But then again, with today's new rules, that might give him 45 minutes of play on the pitch.
Right. Yeah. And I think in a perfect world, the 45 would be great. I think 30 would be ideal. And 15 would be okay. Well, at least he got a little sprint out there. Right. So I think as 30 would be amazing. And to see that happen, I think there needs to be a comfortable lead. So I think it needs to be 2 or 3-0, 3-1 kind of deal, just to really, you don't want to add more pressure on I'm going to say on the kid, but you don't want to add more pressure on the guy just when he came in literally 2 days ago. Right.
So what do you got for that prediction for me as what do you think that final score will be, and how many minutes does Endo see?
Okay. Are we gonna count in extra or added time?
No, just when do you think he'll come on? Okay. Basically, we'll assume.
Right. I think he's going to come on in the 62nd minute, and
Nostra Prince over here.
And I think let's go. I'm not going to be as optimistic as these other guys. I'm going to go 2-3-0. I think we'll keep a clean sheet, which is, I think, more important than winning 4 or 5-1. I think winning 2 or 3-0 would be more important for this team than 4 or 5-1. So I'm going to hope for a 2 or 3-0 is my vote.
I don't disagree with that, actually, that the clean sheet is a really key, and it's something we have to get back to. We're not winning anything this year if the defense doesn't get better, and really, because that's how we're going to beat great teams. So thank you for jumping on, as always. Good luck to you. Good luck to you and your stupid fantasy team. Just don't outscore me. So you are still second when we get on the pod on Thursday night, because the way I look at it, I'm in a bunch of leagues, but as long as I'm ahead of you, I am winning. So
well,
my co-host and friend, have a great week and a good day. You got to go to work, right?
Yeah, I'm leaving in about 10 minutes now. So,
all right. Well, I want you to thank you again for jumping on prior to having to go to work. And thanks for the prediction. And we'll talk to you later this week.
Yeah. Have a good show, man. See you later.
You got it, boss. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So we are now joined. Some of us are sitting in front of green screens. Others of us are making it to the pub. And Trevor is actually en route. And unlike me, he clearly has more energy because I think Trevor has been walking for about 14 to 15 minutes now in the green room. Everyone else is just hanging out, sitting in front of their screens. Trevor is literally walking the streets of Providence as we speak, always walking, as Trevor likes to say. So, Mr. Utley, how are we doing this morning?
Not too bad, not too bad. I've been trying to I was originally going to walk straight there, but then I hit a high patch of construction and didn't want to deal with the same audio calamities that I brought to the table on Thursday.
Yeah, I will say the audio calamities continued after you left, but they didn't start until you came, and they got considerably worse when you were on. So I do blame you for them, but I think you just cursed the StreamYard broadcast, to be honest, because I closed that thing down, restarted a new one 5 minutes later for the fantasy show, and had absolutely no problem. So, with you having to walk and talk at the same time and not really having that much faith in either of them from you, we're going to make this pretty quick with you. What were your thoughts on the lineup? And I'm going to need that prediction again. This is probably a different one than you gave me on Thursday because I'm not sure I really enjoyed that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So as everybody's been saying so far, I think bringing Elliott in as a start would have been the only change I would have made. Have Jota and Nunez to attack tired legs in the second half. That's probably the only change I'd make. And you're rewarding Harvey for being the only person with a pulse in the second half against Chelsea that came on. In terms of a score, as I put in the writer's chat, I said 3-1. Mo gets 2 and gets aggravated for getting pulled off before he gets his third. And we give up a goal that is going to piss everybody off.
Well, I hope the second part of your prediction is not true. I also hope Mo gets 4 goals.
I very much hope so as well.
I rolled that over with Mo this week. I really believe he has a big week. I think he's irritated after the substitution last week. Any other quick insights on either Endo today? Do you expect to see him? How much will he be involved? And are you even excited for him to get an opportunity to get out on the pitch?
No, I'm just going to sound like a parrot for a little bit. I think that him coming in as a competent 6 is huge. It really takes our feet off the fire and trying to get that last midfielder. Teams can't really hold us hostage anymore. And at this point, if you're an international captain who is not a German that becomes a captain of a German side, that speaks volumes. And as you talked about his World Cup run, he was easily Japan's best player for a team that really overproduce. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and that's a great point about the becoming the captain of a German team and not be a German international player, or at least have some level of German ties and connections. That shows that he resonated with the supporters, he resonated with his management, and most importantly, with his teammates. And it also means that he clearly must be able to communicate in multiple languages, which doesn't surprise me, which is also, I think, really key for a quicker integration. So, all right, look out for potholes, watch out for the curbs, enjoy your time at the pub, and tell everybody at your LFC Rhode Island spot that we say hello from American Scouser, and feel free to invite one of us or me, and maybe I'll come broadcast from there one morning for a pre-match or a post-match show. So
sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, buddy. Have a great day, and thanks for jumping on as always. We'll talk to you soon.
No problem. Thank you most kindly.
Safe travels, literally. That was Trevor walking to the pub, and we will bring on our last guest of the day, a familiar face to those who tune into this channel. He hosts the Monday Night Podcast with me and Bickler, which basically means he deserves an award in broadcasting. He also hosts every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday our morning coffee show with his band of ridiculous guests, almost like the band of ridiculous guests we had this morning. I'd say you are the 4th Beatle on your way in, but that would be extremely offensive to the rest of the Beatles. So, Timuchin, how are you, my friend?
What's going on? This is weird. Ready for the game, though. Pretty excited. Same lineup is not what we expected, I think, right? But I'm excited to see I'm rarely optimistic before I go into games, so this could be a curse at the same time. But I feel good about this one. I think we will do well on this one, and it'll be interesting to see how that front three works. How Jota does after the poor performance last week, I thought, because it was hard to gauge Gakpo being out of position. But that was my one thing I would have wanted to see, probably Gakpo more in his natural position up there. But I really think if we didn't get to sign anybody, Gally, that this was the lineup that Klopp had in mind all along, because we played the last preseason and we've been playing it ever since.
Alan jumps in with "Good morning, lads," which would only make me ask Alan, where the hell have you been for 36 minutes? Because this comment is usually the first one on the board. So must have had a little oversleep or didn't catch up, didn't set the alarm clock for the pre-match show. So 2 demerits for Alan. And we're keeping track. And, who knows? We may move some of your trivia questions off the board. You continue to show up late. Just kidding, Alan. We love you from Houston. And where's the weather update, by the way? We got 36 minutes into an American Scouser program without talking about the bleeping weather.
I'm here, baby.
I probably deserve an award for that one. So the lineup, obviously, you're right. I think we expected some type of a tweak, especially kind of with the weakened side or weakened team that we're playing. I personally don't have a problem with it as much, especially knowing that Jones was hurt. I think if Jones had been healthy or even had a better run out against Chelsea, maybe I can understand those saying Elliott deserves a look, but I think you deserve a look 2, 3, 4 games in when guys need a rest. I don't think match week 2 coming off a draw that you really could have gotten 3 points. And let's be honest, these are critical 3 points today. We need to get a win here, get to 4 points. We need to stay in touching distance, because I do think that this league is going to be awkward this year. I think we've talked about it on our Premier League shows. I think the bottom half of this league I think there are literally 9 teams that could find themselves at some point near the relegation zone or in it. And I don't think there's much that separates the bottom half to the mid. So you got to get all your points against them, because the top sides are going to. I really believe that. The Cities, the Arsenals, I think they're going to feast on these bad teams. And we really have to make sure and get up there and get it. It's nice to see that our regional weathermen are chiming in. It is always hot in Houston. It is 73 degrees and sunny in the outskirts of Richmond, Virginia. So clearly, American Scouser can do a few things. It has pull to bring in viewers and listeners from all over the world. And we have the best weather people on the planet. The Weather Channel has nothing on us. The next time a massive storm or a tsunami is coming your way, we're going to send one of our people out. We'll have Alan tied to a tree trunk somewhere in Houston, screaming. And most likely it'll be Bickler, but he'll just be like at a water park, spraying himself down profusely in the splash park, just, given his weather forecast with no sleeves and too much skin showing. So talk to me about that bench a little bit here before we get into prediction time and what you expect to see. And then we'll of course do a couple minutes on Endo, because how could we have a conversation without bringing up the newest red? What do you think about that bench?
When you look at the bench, we all looked at the bench initially to see if Endo is there, right? Because, even probably Klopp did, because that was one thing he was talking about yesterday. So it's good to see him on there. Ideal scenario is he comes in 60, 65th, gets a good run out, gets those butterflies out of the way, the jitters out of the way, so he can perhaps, based on how the week goes, start against Newcastle. And that's my biggest fear right here, right now, is, this on paper looks like it should be an easy 3 points, but there are no easy points in the Premier League. So I just hope that, the boys are not looking past this, and, with our next matchup against Newcastle coming up, which is probably one of the toughest fixtures going away to Newcastle this year. So, but Basetic was a shocker, obviously, to see him on there, because all along it was almost like Thiago is closer than Basetic. Mind you, when Klopp was talking yesterday, he pretty much used the same verbiage for both of them. So I got the feeling from that press conference that both of them were some time to go. So I don't think we see Basetic. I guess my main issue is, even Gakpo were playing in midfield. like if something did happen in midfield, I assume we do see Elliott coming in either way off the bench, because I don't think you putting in, if something happens in the 15th minute, somebody feels something and we have to make a substitution. I don't think you're putting Basetic out there for 75 minutes. I don't think you're putting Endo out there for 75 minutes. Not fair to either of those guys. So that's probably when we would see Elliott. I kind of like that theory of Elliott coming into that midfield that, you know, a few people suggested. I was like, oh, I can go for that, especially this game. I think it really depends on what Jota does, right? Because the only reason you would bring Elliott in there would have been to move Gakpo where he should be. So I think we're kind of putting stock in the pressing we have up top with Jota in there instead of Nunez. You have Diaz, Mo, Gakpo, Sobo, and then Mac behind them. So it's a team that's going to rely on pressing. I really hope Bournemouth tries to build from the back, because the only fear is if they keep booting, I don't know how well we're going to open up with no midfielders as much. They're attacking players. So that's probably the only concern. I hope Bournemouth tries to build from the back, so this pressing is actually effective. But I think we win a couple of those second balls, we get the goals, and hopefully we get to see Endo.
Yeah, so we haven't. It's funny, right? You can almost tell the type of side we're playing. If we were playing an Arsenal or we were playing Newcastle, we would have spent most of this pre-match talking about the defense, our concerns. And I think we just got through 41 minutes without a single person referencing anyone in our back four or Ali, obviously. How important is it that they stay tuned in today and checked in? Because it feels like, especially these matches where we're just going forward wave after wave, that these teams that are lesser teams that just, they catch us in a moment, you know, a non-moment of clarity, basically, where these guys just turn off for 1 second and then someone gets behind, or Kanate makes a rash challenge, gives up a free kick, and the opponent, you know, they score from the, you know, from the set piece. How important is it that the defense, you know, really hang in there today? Because I don't think they're going to be asked to do a lot, but we all know there are going to be 2 or 3 times where they're asked to do their part. And it was a little shaky last week because it felt like when they were asked to defend, I got worried, and that was a lot.
I think the issue with that, though, is you're playing people out of position, so they're making moves and runs and passes that they probably should not, and they get out of position when we turn the ball over. So when we lose the ball, you have, and you're basically probably like what, your 8 playing a 6. You have your 9 playing an 8. So everybody makes these runs and everybody's attack minded in that midfield. So when you do turn the ball over, you put that back 4 in a tough spot. And I do see them in those spots today. I don't know what Trent's role will be today. That'll be interesting to see. Do we do the inverted fullback again? And like kind of like almost like next to Mac? Or do we do the back 4 to take advantage of Robertson and do attack more from that side? So that'll be interesting to see. But I think a lot of the problems that the defense faces right now is because of the midfield in front of them be more attack-minded than defensive-minded. But like you're saying, we are going to need them today. That's why I don't predict the clean sheets. I think we do let one through. I'm going with like a 3-1 or a 4-1, something like that. I just don't see a clean sheet right now. Like you said, because of the way we press, like the aggressive pressing, we give up some like stupid set pieces sometimes. So those are always dangerous to come in. And here's another thing, like, you know, we saw, I think it was last week, I think it's like Soboslai, the way an attacker clears the ball is not the same. Like, you have a lot of size in that midfield, but it's just a different mindset when an attacker comes in to defend. I mean, as a defender, I was like kind of like hated having those guys around unless they were in specific spots, because they do some things that, you know, normal player would not, because that's not the, you know, they want to get that ball cleared and go out again. So it's just like a different mindset. So that's probably like my only fear, those set pieces mainly, and obviously like the rare counter here and there. But I'm hoping we have more than enough firepower. I mean, we talked about it in preseason that we will have to outscore people. Hopefully we outscore by a lot on a game like this, but I think it's going to be one of those games with no clean sheet.
Yeah, midfield has size, but not enough steel. And I think, you know, I think you need steel, right? Like James Milner, not a huge guy, but plays like he's 6'4", right? Like you just knew what you're getting, and you're right. They knew how to come in, they knew how to do a job. Milner knew when to try to flick a ball around a corner and make a run. He was a winger at one point, right? But he also knew when you had to just stick in a tackle, grab someone by the shoulder, or just take someone and clear them out. That's the one thing I saw from Gakpo last week. He looked like he actually understood when to actually take a foul and break up a play, which I think is probably an advantage over the way Szoboszlai plays or even the way Jones plays. So he offers a little bit of that, but you just lose so much. In my opinion, you lose the best connector of our front three. The player who he is the closest thing to Bobby. He makes both players, and it doesn't matter who it is. It could be Nunez, Diaz, Jota, Mo, Ben Doak. I genuinely think he makes both players around him better, and he does it differently depending on which player it is. He drops back deeper when it's Diaz to give him space. He knows he doesn't have to do anything. I'm sorry, with Diaz, when it's Nunez, he drops back to give him space. He doesn't have to do anything with Diaz because Diaz is keeping his boots on the sideline until basically he decides to cut back in. He dribbles straight to the corner and then he comes in. It's beautiful. I don't know how they know what he's doing and no one can do anything about it. It's kind of hilarious.
I think as he gets more of those cut-ins and gets a couple of those, I think he got one last year. I can't remember. Was that Newcastle, Southampton? I can't remember what game that was. But as he scores more of those, he's going to be harder to defend because that's one thing you get with Mo is you're hesitant to let him cut in because he can curve that ball. And now you're not protecting the line, so it leaves the defender. So I think the more effective Diaz is cutting in, the better player he's going to be, the more effective he's going to be. He's going to be even harder to defend.
So I'll get you out of here. You gave us your prediction already. I think I said 5-1. I'll stick with it. I think we do get some goals here today. One, do we see Ben Doak?
Yes.
Okay. And two, how many goals does Mo have to score for him not to throw a temper tantrum when he is pulled off the pitch?
If he has a hat trick and he's coming out on 85th, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. I don't care, by the way. I'm not a person who's like, oh, he's whining and showing up, Klopp. I want my great players to do that. I also want them then midweek to be like, yeah, I acted like kind of like an idiot, showed up the manager. I think he kind of did that, but he basically did it by saying, I never want to be subbed off, which I'm also okay with my superstar players saying. Yeah. He didn't go straight down the tunnel. He didn't, pull a Ronaldo and leave the stadium before the press conference happened. But it was a telling move, and it was a big call by Klopp, as we talked about. So we'll get you out of here with this, guys. Please, as always, go to the YouTube page. If you're not already subscribed, give the channel a subscription. It goes a long way for us. Like, comment, share. Please come back for the post-match. It's going to happen shortly after the final whistle. Maka will be hosting. We will have a whole bunch of contributors coming through, just like we did today. You can drop comments. You can get engaged with us. And we'll even hopefully have a report live from Anfield from one of our writers and contributors who is lucky enough to be at the stadium, I believe, with press credentials today. So what a get by us. Good job to Muchin for pulling that in. Really appreciate Adam for making the time and jumping in. To everyone today, Kazi, Matush, Maka, Trevor on his walk, and of course, to Muchin and myself, I'm Gally. We appreciate you, as always, the likes, the subscriptions, watch all the content, and if you want to get involved, send us a message and let us know how. We're always looking for new contributors and support to the site. So thank you again. Up the Reds, and everybody's got 5 minutes to hit the toilet before the match starts. All right, everyone, have a great week, and we'll be back after the match.